Welcome, everybody, to this special edition of Michael Antonio Live. Yeah, I had to jump on here because I was just watching a YouTuber who I watch quite frequently, actually, because I learn a lot from this particular person. His name is Mr. Joe Scott, everybody. Let's take a look at Joe Scott. Now, before I even start this, I want to say that I'm not watching this video, kind of sharing this video with you and some of his thoughts to attack him personally. I'm not looking to make this about him specifically. What I want to do is I want to point out the difference in viewpoints between the left wing, in other words, a Democrat, and people who think on the conservative side here, based on what's going on in this country right now. America is on fire. We all know this. There's a lot of problems going on. We've got people crying racism. We've got the other side saying, wait a minute, no, we're not racist. What are you doing? And, you know, we've got them saying they want us to kneel and all these things. And I got to tell you, it's disturbing to me because we have people ignoring the true history of America. And if you keep watching, you'll know what I'm talking about. So I say we get right into this here. Let's start listening to Joe a little bit, and I'll kind of interject and interrupt as we go forward, okay? So let's go ahead and listen.
And then, all this stuff started happening with the protests and the riots and the police brutality and whatnot, and so...
Hang on, I gotta stop him right there. You notice what he said with the police brutality. Now, I don't know if he meant the police brutality, he's, in other words, accusing the police of brutality during the protests, or if he was talking about the original police brutality of that gentleman that killed George Floyd. I'm hoping that it's the George Floyd thing, because obviously that was police brutality. We all know that. Everyone knows that. But if he means police brutality afterwards, well, I mean... That's very subjective because you had a lot of things going on. It was very complicated because you had these crowds coming together, and many of which were committing violent acts against people, and the police had to respond. Did you expect the police to do nothing, Joe? Come on, you really got to think about things when you say them. Let's continue.
But yeah, suddenly didn't seem appropriate at all. There's been a lot of images coming out of these protests, not all easy to look at. Some disturbing, some just generally make you sad. But some of the more uplifting ones that I've seen involve kneeling. There have been cops that have come out to some of these protests, and instead of firing on the crowd and using tear gas, they come out and they take a knee.
Okay, I want to stop him there again. And again, I don't want to beat him up for this. This is a viewpoint that is expressed by left-leaning people. They believe that by taking a knee, what they are doing is they are diffusing a situation. They are kind of showing humility towards their opposition, towards the one that's been angry at them or whatever the case may be. Now, look, in some cases, you do want to show humility towards a person who you wronged, towards someone who you definitely feel like needs to be treated in a certain way because they've been wronged. And I understand that. But I think in this situation, you have to read the crowd right, in other words. I don't know if Joe is really doing that. I don't know if the entire left wing is doing that properly. They're not really reading the individuals that we're dealing with here correctly. There are people who do need to be given a little bit of comfort, mercy. But then there are those who are spoiled, those who expect you to bow to them, those who don't want to make any concessions in their life. They don't want to make any changes, but they expect you to make all the changes. And this is what I'm getting at. And I think this is where Joe and many of the people in this country who feel the same way he does, this is where they go wrong. Because they believe that it's okay, we got to take a knee. We have to bow down to these people and let them know that we wronged them and they have every right to feel the way they feel. And when you start doing that, it's not going to turn out well, or at least the way you think it's going to turn out. Let's listen a little bit more here.
And they sit with them, and they say, "Listen, we're here to listen to you, and we're here to protect you while you engage in your constitutionally, protected freedom of speech."
I got to keep stopping this guy, because every time he lets out another phrase out of his mouth, he starts talking about things that are not necessarily true. Now, what is true is that, yes, people are entitled to peaceably assemble and speak freely. So he's right. But the problem is, a lot of these people, which is the reason why the police responded harshly in some cases, in other words, shot rubber bullets and tear gas and all these things, the reason why they had to do that is because the speech wasn't always peaceful. There was a lot of violent protest. It doesn't mean that everyone was violent, but the point is, when you take this approach that, well, I'm going to take a knee to you and I'm going to bow myself down before you, because after all, you're being peaceful here. Well, maybe they were, maybe they won't, maybe they were not. Maybe it's possible that the same person that's peaceable right now, just 5 minutes before, was throwing rocks at somebody, or defacing a building, or, breaking some glass in a business to steal from them. So you don't really know the whole truth here. There's a lot going on. And I think that, Joe, although he's trying to paint the best picture, and I believe Joe believes the best of everyone. I believe he wants to believe that. But I even think, I think that even deep down in his own heart, he knows that it's not really true what he's saying 100%. There is something a little deeper here going on. He wants to believe the best, but no, there is not the best. Let's continue.
And usually in those cases, they end in hugs. I've seen some videos like that where the cop gets down there, the cop takes a knee, and then a whole crowd of protesters, they take a knee, and they talk, and they listen. And when it's all said and done, the protesters come up and they hug the cops. And then in other places, they just fire on the crowd with rubber bullets in an inappropriate way. That's not the way you're supposed to use rubber bullets. And tear.
Hang on. All right, well, let's finish here. He's going to say tear gas, right? Tear gas, yeah, okay.
What do you know? Things escalate when you do that.
Yeah, okay, so wait a minute.
Of course, is reflect.
Wait a minute. Okay, so Joe, what you're trying to say here is that, these cops just inappropriately fired rubber bullets and tear gas, into a peaceful crowd, right? Is that what they were doing? Now, do you know that, Joe? Were you there? I find it very dubious. I find it very hard to believe that the cops would just walk up to a peaceful crowd and start shooting at them or start throwing tear gas at them. Sorry, but Joe, you're probably not telling the truth here. And I'm not going to say you're a liar, because you probably actually believe what you heard from the media. The media has lied to you, Joe. I got the other side of it. I know what happened. If you're trying to refer to the time that the president came out in front of that church and held up a Bible, and before that, the police threw out, not really tear gas. It wasn't tear gas. It was some kind of a pepper spray. And that type of thing. Yes, if they did that, not because they were peacefully assembling and they wanted to move them. They asked the crowd to move before this time. Some of the crowd moved, and those were the ones that were peaceable. They moved away. They understood what was going on. The rest of them, Joe, were throwing bottles at the police. And so guess what happens? So who was escalating this? See, Joe, you got to be careful, Joe, saying, the police escalated this. Look, you cannot allow people to be violent towards innocent people. And the cops in this situation are innocent. They're trying to do a job, and somebody's throwing bottles at them and possibly rocks. Who knows what else they were throwing. So what I'm trying to say is, Joe, you're making a lot of assumptions here. You're making too many assumptions for us to just think that what you're saying is correct. Okay? So that's something I need you to understand. I'll continue.
Reflective of what Colin Kaepernick was doing, which cost him his job. And
okay, no. Colin Kaepernick lost his job because he's essentially a low-end quarterback right now. He doesn't have the skill set that is necessary to be a starter in the league, And to be frank with you, he was kneeling down disrespecting the flag. He was disrespecting the very symbol of the freedom that is provided to all Americans, including people of color. So it isn't just, this is not something that Americans take lightly. Okay, Americans expect you to be respectful of the flag. And no, Mr. Kaepernick is not entitled to a job in the NFL if he disrespects our flag and disrespects the wishes of the team that he works for. If I do something at work that dishonors my boss and creates a problem for my boss, whether it be financially, public relations, whatever it is, and of course public relations issues do cost a company financially, obviously. So no, he's not entitled to keep his job in that situation. But I don't think that really is what caused him his job. Joe, come on, you got to be realistic. You're a little bit naive here. If you think that cost him his job, if he would have been a top-notch quarterback, if he had been a Tom Brady type, or even half of what Tom Brady is, I guarantee you somebody in the NFL would have found a place for him. I guarantee it. Now, they might have told him, look, we understand what you're doing here. We're going to address the situation, and we're going to take it seriously, but you got to stop taking a knee. In other words, they could have come to a compromise with him. Now, here's the problem. Was Colin Kaepernick willing to compromise? And if the black community is not willing to compromise and understand their own shortcomings in the inner cities, this is another problem. See, Joe, you don't get it. Taking a knee before the black community, okay, these protesters, is admitting defeat and not asking them to do something. You don't be quiet and listen to them talk without actually talking back and exchanging ideas, Joe. This is a problem with the left wing. This is why the Democrats don't get it. You have to be able to exchange ideas. When you tell one group to shut up and listen, and you don't allow them to speak at all, you'll never solve a problem. You will always have resentment. You will always have the back and forth. That's what's going to happen. You're never going to get to a consensus or a relative peace, a comfortability with some kind of an agreement. You know, people can be satisfied in any conflict if each side believes they came away with something good. And Joe, that's conflict resolution. Joe, you should understand this stuff. You've been talking science and philosophy for how many years now on YouTube? You should understand these things. It's not so simple like you're saying it. It's such a naive viewpoint to think that a police officer can stand in front of a crowd, take their knee, and talk to them, and then say, oh, look at this, they're hugging me, that's so wonderful. I'm not saying hugging is not wonderful. You know, oh, and by the way, hugging, what happened to the COVID problem? What happened to telling people they had to stay home and not, come together in crowds and increase the danger to the rest of the population, including themselves? Whatever happened to, oh, you're killing grandma? Oh, apparently for a protest, it's okay. If it fits the left-wing narrative, that's perfectly okay, Joe. Are you seeing what's going on here? I'll continue. I'm going to listen to Joe a little bit more.
The reason he stated that he was doing that was because he wanted to draw attention to police brutality, the issue of police brutality and systemic racism. And
again, I got to keep interrupting this guy. There is no systemic racism, Joe. There's no evidence of that. Look, I grew up in the 70s as a child, okay? I don't know how old. I think Joe is a little bit younger than me, but I believe you're not that much younger than me. And maybe you did see some racism growing up. I did actually see racism growing up. Because at that time, we did not fully mature as a society. We were getting there. I mean, believe me, we were getting there. There were changes that took place. But I think that to say that we are still now in a situation where there's systemic racism is just malarkey. I don't see that at all. And I've been around, Joe. I don't think you've been around as much as I have. I've seen it. Oh, and by the way, Joe, I saw racism from all sides when I was young. I had people, I interacted with people of color all of my life, And most of them in my life were wonderful people. They were wonderful people, but some of them had attitudes. Now, it might have been because they were treated poorly by white people or by another group. I don't want to say that they just, out of the blue, were just nasty. But I think that they were, of course, they were nasty to me sometimes. And you know what I saw? They would call me names. They called me bad names. Things that were racial slurs against people who are white. And you know what? I understand. I didn't take it personally. I didn't try to, gather up a protester group and destroy neighborhoods, loot. I didn't do any of those things. So like I said, we did grow as a society, and I find it very difficult to prove that that there is any such thing in today's world, 2020, as systemic racism. I don't see that anywhere. I don't. Do I see racism? In pockets, yes, there's racism. You're never going to eliminate racism because we're humans. There will always be humans who will be racist. They will be sexist. They will actually discriminate based on religious affiliations and philosophical viewpoints. That will never change. The idea is to come together and tolerate each other. Find a way to find a happy medium. And that's just the way that it should be. You don't ever bow down to another group of people or another person. You just don't do it. You join them. You shake their hand, you come together, and you exchange ideas. That's what it comes down to. Let's keep listening and see what else some other gems that Joe has coming for us here.
Of course, people from a certain segment of the media just applied their own meaning to it and said, no, you're disrespecting the flag, you're disrespecting the troops. And then he's like, no, I never said anything about the troops. I'm trying to draw attention to, police brutality. No, you're disrespecting the flag, you're disrespecting the troops. So, they weren't listening to him. And the thing is...
Okay, again, I gotta stop him because, again, maybe Joe doesn't know this. And I have to refresh his memory. Joe, if you're listening to this, if you do see this at all, which you probably don't think I'm that important, so you're not gonna listen because you're probably arrogant. But, if you do happen to watch this, and again, I'm not trying to be personally attacking you, but I think you are kind of showing us the viewpoint of a left-leaning person. So if you do, I want you to go back and watch one of my prior videos that talks about the fact that Colin Kaepernick did make it about the flag. If you look at his whole history and see what happened even after he was out of the NFL and some of the things that he did and said. So please, Joe, go to my video that is titled, yes, it's about the flag. Okay, it is. And just to kind of give you a little synopsis of that video, Joe, I will tell you that Colin Kaepernick actually had Nike, remove one of their shoes that they were going to build that had the old Betsy Ross American flag, and he said that was a symbol of racism. Remember that? So yeah, it is about the flag. Okay, if you really study what Colin Kaepernick believes, you will find out that he believes that America was founded on racist ideologies, that the entire foundation of America and the flag, which represents that, is based on something that needs to be torn down completely and altered. He wants a new America, an entirely different America than what our founders envisioned, Joe. And I think you have to understand that's a bad idea. That's not what America wants. That's not what most Americans want. A majority of Americans understand what is right. And that right there, that viewpoint that Colin Kaepernick holds, is not right. He doesn't get what he wants here, Joe. So, Joe, you're wrong again. You really need to understand what's going on here. You are in the dark, Joe. You are. You're holding a viewpoint that has been foisted upon you. You've been lied to. In fact, if you study BLM, the Black Lives Matter movement, that entire organization is an anti-Semitic group, that was started to attack more than just white people, but Jews. And it was created as a left-wing organization to reshape America, not to a place that wants harmony between everybody. No, they want white people to be subservient to everyone else because they believe that European whites are the problem. That's what they believe. And I'm going to show you later, Joe, this is a learning experience for you. I'm going to show you later, Joe, how that entire line of thinking is completely wrong. And I'm going to refer to a gentleman by the name of Thomas Sowell. I don't know if you've ever heard of him. He's a brilliant man. And I'm going to show you what he said about this. And the history will shock you. Do you want to be shocked, Joe? Be ready to be shocked. All right, let's listen to Joe some more.
The whole kneeling thing, the taking a knee. You know, I did some team sports back in school. I played basketball, that much football, which basically means I showed up for practice and then stood on the sideline, which was totally the right call by my coach. But I played enough team sports to know that take a knee means something special in team sports. When a coach calls the team around and says, all right, everybody take a knee, that's when it's time to listen. That's when he really wants your attention. That's when he really wants to impart some real, wisdom to you.
Okay, wisdom. Here's the problem, Joe. And again, when you are on a football team, you put your trust in a coach, believing that he has much more knowledge than you, not only about football in general, but about the specific team schemes, about the plans, how they design that football team. In other words, the different styles they use for their defense and their offense and the X's and the O's. That coach knows more than you, so you trust him. So that's his wisdom. He's going to impart that, and not just the X's and O's, but yeah, maybe some life lessons too. Sure, because you're a young guy. This coach is older than you. He knows a little bit more about the world than you do. So I understand that, Joe. But for you to equate that, to try to conflate that with a group of people who are protesting, you don't know if those protesters are right about what they're saying. You don't know if they're right. You just don't. And so, it's not always a good idea to kneel down to people who might just be crazy lunatics who are trying to take advantage of a bad situation. You gotta be careful, Joe. I can tell you this much, that those crowds that were looting and causing all the damage, they weren't doing the right thing, and I can guarantee you they're not very wise. So I'm not going to kneel down to that. So I think, Joe, you're kind of trying to conflate two things that are not necessarily the same. And we got a lot of issues. I mean, there's things that you're not thinking about. You're just trying to make peace just for the sake of making peace. And that's not always a good idea, Joe. And I'll take it back to, and I know you don't believe in this, but I'm going to say it. Let's take it back to what Jesus said. Remember when Jesus said, don't think that I came to bring peace. I came to bring a sword. And what did he mean by that, Joe? He didn't mean a literal physical sword where we're going to kill each other. That's not what he meant. It wasn't a violent, call to violence at all. It was essentially telling people that when you stand for something, you're going to get flack from other people, but you got to stand up anyway. And you got to stand against something that you know to be wrong. And that you're going to divide yourself from people who you love and who love you. Separate, mothers and fathers from their sons and daughters, brothers from sisters, sisters from brothers, and cousins from it's just, any possible relationship you can actually think of, you will be dividing people up based on beliefs and what you're willing to stand for. And I'm going to tell you right now, Joe, conservatives understand America. We do. We understand it better than left-leaning people. And I'm going to tell you that when we stand for something, we're not backing down because we know it to be right. So if somebody asks us, you better kneel down and listen and just shut up for a while. No, it's not time to do that because there's a big problem right now. And the other side, the people that are rioting and looting, and even some of the protesters that are stubborn, need to understand something, Joe. They need to understand that they have to listen themselves. Okay? Everybody's in class. Yes, I have something to learn. You have something to learn. And yes, the black community has something to learn. And so everybody has to take something away from this, Joe. I don't see that happening. With your attitude, you are enabling them. You ever heard of an enabler? When you got somebody in your family who's a drug abuser or an alcoholic and you're trying to stop them from killing themselves? Well, what happens? You don't kneel down to them. You don't listen to them. No. Now, yes, you may listen a little bit to kind of let them vent and get their frustrations out, but you gotta speak too. It's what's called a teachable moment. These people need a teachable moment. Not just the other side, not just me, not just you. It just bothers me. Peace for the sake of peace is not always the best thing. Because if you do that, you're appeasing somebody who might take advantage of that. And come on, Joe, I know you have more wisdom than this. I know it.
He or she. That's time to put everything aside and listen to this piece of information, because this is important. So when Kaepernick's taking a knee, again, as somebody who plays team sports, it had that extra meaning to it. It wasn't just, I'm going to call attention to all this. It also meant we need to be listening. And
you're making a lot of assumptions here, Joe. You don't know that's why he was taking a knee. You have to remember that before this time, and again, this is something that maybe escapes many of us. We don't remember this, but there were kids in school who were choosing to not stand up for the Pledge of Allegiance in the beginning of school. No, when I was a kid, that's just what we did. It was a sign of respect for the flag and for what it represents, freedom. And the people who bled and died to provide that freedom, Joe. And so what I'm saying is that there were those in those classrooms that said, no, I don't believe in what the flag represents. I don't want to stand up for that thing. And you know what? I think that in that situation, those kids, because they were in a public school system, I think if their parents had said, look, I don't want them, standing up for the flag, that's fine. Like I said, if the parents don't want it, that's fine. But we come to a situation where you're working for an organization that prides itself on respect for America, the flag, our freedoms, and the people that died for those freedoms and protected us. Well, you're looking at it from that side, and a lot of fans that believe that too. Most of the fans in the NFL, and I would have to say in most sports, believe in that flag and what it represents. They believe in that freedom, Joe. And you have to understand it's a great offense when somebody kneels down and says, you know what, I'm not going to stand up and do this. I am not, because I don't believe there's freedom in this country, and I don't believe in what that flag represents. I believe that we had racism from the beginning. Now, we have proof of this, Joe, because he actually nixed an idea from Nike that they were going to put on a sneaker. They were going to put a Betsy Ross flag, if you remember. They were going to put that on their sneakers. And Colin Kaepernick specifically said, no, you don't. No, you don't. So, Joe, you're making a lot of assumptions. Maybe you didn't know. I'm going to give you a pass on this. I don't think you knew. But you got to stop being naive. I mean, you're really naive. If you think for 1 minute that to him and to many like him, that this is not about the flag. It is. It's about, they don't believe that America ever represented true freedom from the beginning. Why? Because they conflated the original founders of this country, many of whom owned slaves, to the situation of, a lack of understanding of what freedom is. That, you made slavery part of your charter here at the founding of our nation. And again, I get into that history a little bit in my other videos, Joe, so I really recommend and I ask you to watch my videos. I've watched plenty of yours. So I think it's time that you want to, I listen to you a lot. It's time for you to listen to me maybe a little bit. Watch some of the videos. And maybe you'll get a better understanding of the way conservatives think. Because right now, you're doing a good job for the left-leaning people. You're really kind of showing, you're putting this all out on your sleeve here. We can see it. And it's a good little lesson on how you think and how people like you think. And again, no hatred here. I don't hate you for it. It's just, it is what it is, but I'm just trying to show you that you're looking at this from one side, and I think you're being lied to. I think that the things that you've been taught by many of these people that believe in Colin Kaepernick and what he's doing, I think they lied to you. I don't think you understand what's going on here at all. And I wish you did, but you don't.
And the irony is that people weren't listening to him. They were applying their own meaning to what he was trying to say. and never.
No. Wrong. They were applying American patriotism to what he was trying to say. See, he didn't actually fix the problem or even attempt to fix the problem. Because you see, here's the thing. He went right for the throat. He went for the money shot. Have you ever gone fishing, Joe? You probably have. I'm sure you have. And here's what happens. When you're fishing and a fish grabs the line, there's a certain way to deal with a fish. You can't just jerk the line too quickly, or what happens? You lose the fish. You end up getting a hook in your face. You know what I'm talking about? You know what I mean. Well, you have to set the hook, and you have to, you got to be careful. It's a nuanced thing, but it's very difficult to learn. But as you grow and you learn fishing, you understand how this works. Well, this is what he tried to do. Colin tried to essentially snap that line and grab the fish too quick. The fish hadn't been done, he was just nibbling a little bit. He tried to set that hook far too early, and he went too hard on it. He went right for the money shot. And the problem with that is it doesn't work. He tried to say something that was not true. He tried to say that America is systemically racist, and he's incorrect. He's wrong. And again, that doesn't mean that there is no racism. There's a difference there. Yes, there's always going to be racism. And again, I got to say this from all sides. There will always be racism because we're humans. We're flawed. We are in sin. And unless everybody turns their life to Christ and understands that we're sinful and we need help from God, there will always be racism in this world. Our job is to keep it to a minimum, as much as we can, to get along with other people and live in harmony to the best of our ability. Our job is not to make other people bow before us and just listen and shut up. There's a time that people have to shut up, and now is not that time. It's time for everyone to listen to everyone else. We got to have a conversation, Joe. That's what we need.
Heard the message. And so now all of this is going on, and I didn't want to put out the video that I had already planned on putting out because it just wasn't appropriate. Felt very tone deaf and like I'm living on some plane of reality that's different from everybody else, to not acknowledge what's going on. And I do have a decent platform at this point, and I want to do good things with it and support things that are, worthy of supporting. And I've had a lot of people ask me to talk about this in some way, because I'm now in a position where people want to hear what I think about things. And I'm very thankful for that. But, I'm pretty sure that another white guy talking about how this has affected him or what he's going through, is not really what the world needs right now.
Wrong, Joe. Wrong. You have to understand something. That when you talk like that, the minute you say that, what you're saying is that the opinion of a particular group of people is not important at all, simply because other people say that they've been oppressed. The bottom line is, the people of today that are people of color, they have no idea what it was like to be truly oppressed. None of them. Now, yes, maybe a few of them have had racial slurs thrown their way. They might have gone through a few things. I guarantee they have. But they will not know. And come on, Joe, you're naive here. They will never know what it's like to go through true oppression. None of them. Maybe some of the very oldest ones, the people in their 70s now, have gone through it. But many of the younger ones, they don't know what true oppression is. They really don't. They've been treated very well, in fact. They've been given every opportunity, things that were taken away from white people to give to them. Do you remember affirmative action, Joe? Affirmative action was designed to make it up to the black community, to give them opportunities that they otherwise would not have. And you know this, Joe. You know it. Or maybe you don't. I don't know. Maybe I'm being naive towards what you know. It's possible that you don't remember affirmative action and the results of that. Maybe you don't. And again, I don't want you to, I don't want to assume upon you, maybe you do remember that, but come on, Joe, to say that, oh, we don't want to hear from white people right now. You know what? That is short-sighted and it's bigoted. It's bigoted. Well, you know what I could say? I could make the same argument about the black community today. I can say, well, your opinion's not that important because you're biased. Everything you say, because you are a member of the black community, you're going to look for all the things that you want from your perspective, not from a wider perspective that is better. In other words, a wider perspective would take everyone into account. If you're black and you're saying, well, I've been oppressed and I need this, 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 and this, you're biased. So we can't take everything you say into consideration. We have to look at each thing very carefully and say, well, what's better for what's better for a compromise here? What's better to make sure that everyone is accounted for here? To make sure that we have what's called equal protection under the law. And I'm sorry, Joe, but no, you can't say things. All you're doing is fueling more resentment. And you will never, I'm going to say this to you, Joe, this is a learning time for you. You will never get a consensus. You will never get the peace that you are looking for. You will never get this harmony, okay, and this utopia that you want. And I'm not saying you think we're going to have perfection someday. I mean, I think you understand that that's not possible. 100% perfection will never happen. But I think even to get what you want, even a basic harmony, you're not going to get it by saying what you just said. I'm sorry, Joe, but you're not. You can't do it, man. You're appeasing people. All you're doing is, it seems like to me, and again, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like you are appeasing a group of people and having a false sense of humility here. Now, maybe it's not false, but it certainly sounds like it to me.
I think it's time to listen. And so that's what I've been trying to do. And it's kind of put me in a weird position because it's like, yes, like I just said, I want to do a video where I talk about this. And so
it's time for you to listen, Joe. Maybe you should listen to me. Maybe you should be listening to people who have a wider understanding of this, because you've already, this video, you're not even 6 minutes into this video, and you have already said many things that are not true. And again, I am not, let me say it again, not accusing you of being a liar. I just think you don't know. I just think you assume certain things. You've been fed these lies, maybe all of your life. Who knows? You've been fed certain things, and you just take them on face value. And you know what? Here's the problem. We should not be worshiping one particular group over others. We should not be putting other groups in some special category at the expense of others. Why? Because of stuff like this. Because you begin to believe the lore. You begin to believe all these mythical tales of grand oppression now, when you know that's not true anymore. At one time it was true. Again, these people are conflating what happened back then with what's going on now. It's not even close. It's not even close. And, I got to tell you, Thomas Sowell would even say this. He's a black economist and an incredible philosopher. He understands what's going on, and he'll tell you the same thing. It's all of this stuff is just baloney, Joe. And again, I think we've had enough of Joe right now. Joe, I appreciate what you're saying, but I really think, yes, I believe you should listen, but I think you should listen to the broader, spectrum here. You should be listening to a broader group of people, not just one group. Let's stop worshiping one group of people or treating them like they are special. Okay? That's idolatry, Joe. That's idolatry. And it's wrong. It's very wrong. This problem is not European white people. Okay? It's not. This problem is not that. And I will show you. Let's go to Thomas Sowell. Now, Thomas Sowell, I don't know why it's not on this now. Let me see. I'll go back for a minute here. Okay, now, some of the things that he wrote, he's really smart, okay? Okay? He knows history much better than I do, or much better than in most people, especially when it comes to the issue of slavery, okay? Listen to what he says in one of his later tweets. In fact, June 10th, Thursday. He says, when slavery is mentioned, too many people automatically think of whites enslaving blacks. That is not even 1/10 of the story of slavery, which existed on every inhabited continent. Let me say it again. Slavery of blacks by whites is not even 1/10 of the story. So that means that less than 10% in the history of slavery, less than 10% of blacks were enslaved by whites. That means that happened less than 10% of the time. Can you believe that? That's amazing. And remember, Thomas Sowell's not just talking out of his buttinsky here. He knows what he's talking about. Okay? So you have to understand something that, these are things that we have to understand. Something else. Now they're talking about, there's another story I read on here by David Johnson. He's saying that at least 28 million Africans were enslaved by the Muslims, as at least 80% of those captured by the Muslim slave traders were calculated to have died before reaching the slave markets. So really, if you think about it, this is not a white problem. And again, that doesn't mean that white people, that not one single white person was guilty. Yeah, there were white people involved in the slave market, and it was a very bad thing. They shouldn't have done that. It's wrong. It's wrong for anybody to do that to anybody else. But for you to treat this like it's just a white problem and white people need to shut up, that's really short-sighted, Joe. It's really, really short-sighted. I just can't even believe. It's amazing to me how people just believe everything they're told. And they don't even study things themselves. They don't even understand, It's just amazing. But that's the way it is with Joe. Joe, like I said, Joe, I'm not here to attack you as a person. I'm just taking kind of a left-leaning perspective because you're kind of good at showing the left-wing perspective here. You really did a good job of kind of showing us what the left-leaning person thinks, how they view the world, how they view, race relations and all these things. And it's just, wow. It's just amazing. It's amazing. But yeah, he said a lot of other things here that really, I don't know. He's just,
it shouldn't be about me. I feel a general sadness about what's going on. And of course, the deaths that have been taking place, George Floyd, Emmett Asbury, Breonna Taylor, these are horrible. And I'm right there along with everybody else, but this isn't about me. It's not time to listen to me. It's time to listen to other people. So I wanted to take this opportunity.
Other people? What do you mean? Just black people? Is that what you're saying?
The voices of people who are actually affected.
All right. So he did have some other people make tweets that he read here. I don't really want to get into that too much.
50% of the population there that just it's hard to put into words. And this sentiment comes out from time to time. I remember.
I could go on forever with this, but I just wanted to say, Joe, that like I said, I think instead of you taking just a left-wing perspective on this and believing everything that you were told, that it's basically white people need to shut up and talk about our systemic racism against black people, I think that's ridiculous. At one time, that was true. And, maybe even in my, earliest days alive, I was born in the late 60s. So maybe in those early days, we were coming out of the darkness, so to speak. Yeah, you're right. But now, come on, it's 2020. And society has grown a great deal since then. A great deal. And I think for you to say this is really not good. But I will say this, too. And I believe I mentioned this in the other videos. So please, Joe, watch the videos. Look, I watched yours. I show you a lot of respect. I watch a lot of your videos. And I have learned a lot. But I'm going to tell you, I think you should watch my videos and learn something, too. And I'm going to tell you that if you look at the history of the black community from the 1960s to now, you can see why we have a problem here. And I know that you're going to not agree with this, but I'm telling you, if you really, took an objective look, instead of trying to look at things through your lens, take an objective look at what's going on. We have a lot of problems in our inner cities. Okay? Because the leaders of those inner cities and the leaders in Washington, they coddled them. And they told them that all you need to do is vote for us, and we'll just keep shoveling money into your coffer. We'll just keep on giving you those checks, and all you got to do is just vote for us. You don't have to have any accountability. You don't have to get better in your life, because you know what? You're probably not going to get better, because you're not worthy. And you see, they didn't say it that way, but what they said was, yeah, you're not worthy because the white man says you're not worthy, and so we have to be here to help you. So we're the ones that are going to give you the welfare checks, and we're going to make sure that you're always taken care of, and that you don't have to worry, oh, if you get stopped by the police and arrested, or if something happens, we're going to make sure that we abuse them and sully their name because you were treated unfairly. And in some cases, they were treated unfairly. We know that. But I think in many cases, these people were coddled. They didn't really have any respect for the law because they were taught not to respect the law. They were taught that it's okay to disrespect the police because the police are the problem. Okay, this is what's been going on for the last 50 years and longer, maybe 60 years. And Joe, I don't think you get this. I don't think you understand that there's an accountability right now that doesn't exist in many of these places. Many of these inner cities don't have this accountability, and so they just run amok. You've got gang violence. Remember something, Joe, the black-on-black crime and black-on-black murder rate is out of control. That's how most black people are killed, by other black people, and it's mostly gang violence. Nobody taught these children from the 1960s to today. They were not taught to be accountable, to be respectful, that there's a God up there that you have to respect, that you have to show honor to. You have to honor your mother and your father. No, they were taught, in fact, they were given incentive to not have families anymore. So now you've got an unwed mother rate, or actually a single motherhood rate, in the inner city of what? Over 70% now? When it was, I think, less than 10% at some point before that? Okay. So what do you do about it? So you don't want to hold them accountable? You don't want to tell them, we're going to stop, giving you an incentive to have children when you don't have a partner that's going to help you raise those children. A fatherly figure in the house. No, they give them an incentive to not have a fatherly figure in the house. Are you understanding what's going on here, Joe? The problem is much more complicated and much bigger than you are making it out to be. No, it's not just a bunch of white racists running around trying to hurt black people. And that's the way you're making this sound. And you're believing what they are saying. They're running around protesting what? What do they want? They don't even really tell you what they want. Well, they do want you to kneel down and kiss their butt. They want you to kiss their feet right now. But, what happens after that? When you're done kneeling and when they ask you for reparations or some other nonsense, they ask you to essentially keep on shoveling the money in and shut up. Don't make us be accountable for our lives individually. Let's not talk about individual responsibility. Nope, just keep it. So what happens if we say, no, you gotta give something. Nope, shut up. Shut up. Hey, Joe told us to shut up. Joe told you guys you gotta shut up, so you know what? I guess you better shut up. And just keep, what's the expression in that movie? F you, pay me. Remember that? Yeah. That's their attitude. F you, pay me. Give me something here. That's what I want. No responsibility, no accountability. And I don't blame them today. I blame the leadership that did something to hurt them. And it all started with Lyndon Baines Johnson. Why don't you study that a little bit, Joe? I got some homework for you. I got a little assignment for you, Joe. I want you to look up Dinesh D'Souza. The man will set you straight. He will teach you a thing or two about a thing or two. He will let you understand, okay, what the problem is in the world today. Dinesh D'Souza. In fact, I'm going to type it in right now, right here, so it's easy for you. Okay? Dinesh D'Souza is Brilliant. He knows the history. Okay, he knows the history of slavery and what went on in this country. Even though he's an immigrant from India, he knows. So I want you to go, Joe, I want you to go to Dinesh D'Souza, and I want you to learn some things. Watch some of his videos. See what he's about. He knows what he's talking about. And you got to put aside your left-wing viewpoint here. You got to kind of, please, like Mr. Rogers, hang that coat up, change your clothes, put on those comfortable shoes, sit down with a nice latte or whatever it is you drink for comfort, and watch a little Dinesh. Because you know what? You're going to learn something. You're going to learn a thing or two about a thing or two. I'm going to tell you right now. Because I'm telling you, what you've been learning is a bunch of malarkey. You've been lied to. Okay? We need to get away from these situations where you have no accountability, no responsibility, and we got to start putting responsibility and accountability on individuals. And that's really what it's about, Joe. Stop with the group identity politics. Stop it. I know some of these people have been hurt. I've been hurt. Let me tell you about my story. Let me tell you what happened to me. I shouldn't say me, specifically, but my family, okay? In the 1950s, my father attended a Philadelphia inner-city school as a teenager. He was in high school. Okay. One day after school, he was approached by a large gang of black thugs. They proceeded to beat him mercilessly. They beat him so brutally and so badly that he almost died. He says that he remembered being semi-conscious and he could see like a boot kicking into his face. Okay, Joe? And he said they spit on him so much he had a layer of spit all over his body. Now, I want you to think about that. Has that ever happened to you, Joe? Has anybody done that to you? Think a little bit, Joe. So what happens? My grandfather tries to get justice from the police. They would rather have the family just leave town. That's what they told him. Yeah, you're not going to get justice here. Okay? So the point is, before you make judgment calls like you've been making, before you think that we all need to just shut up and listen, maybe everybody gets a chance at the table to talk. Maybe everybody's ideas should be explored. Maybe if somebody tells the black community, get your crap together, guys. Start teaching your children individual responsibility. Stop giving them incentives to be single mothers. Come on, we're better than this, Joe. We're smarter than this. So the short of it is, if that gang of thugs at that inner city school in Philadelphia had succeeded in killing my father, and they were very close to doing so, I would not be here today. I am fortunate. It's by the grace of God that I'm here today, and it's in spite of those brutal thugs that attacked my father that day in the 1950s. So I will tell you, Joe, that the world is much bigger than your bubble. You're in a bubble, Joe. That's where you are. Please, get out of your bubble. Get out of that bubble that you reside in and open your mind. Expand your mind. You're living in a leftist world view here. That's where you're living. You're looking at things just from the left wing. Sorry, but that's a fact. I know that hurts you. I know that bothers you, but it's the truth. And I expect better from everyone, not just you, but everyone. Expand your mind. I want you to look at every single aspect. Because remember something, it's not about who we are. It's not about even just about our personal experiences. Joe, you can talk about several different personal experiences. And let me just throw this at you. You already know that scientifically speaking, you understand the concept of anecdotal evidence, don't you? That when we look at numbers, we have to look at the aggregate numbers to get a better idea of what's really going on. Well, we found out that if you look at the numbers, that there really isn't any systemic racism going on in America by the numbers at large. We know that to be true. Yes, you can tell a story. You can give me an anecdote about somebody that was treated poorly because of race. Absolutely, it happens. We will never deny this. That's a fact. But in order to prove systemic racism, or anything systemic for that matter, the numbers have to match it. And the numbers simply do not meet that requirement, Joe. So I'm trying to tell you right now, please be careful. Look, if you want to listen to them, go ahead. But I'm not going to, because, see, I don't bow down to anyone but God. We are only to bow down before our Creator. Do you understand that? Everyone else, we can salute them, we can respect them, we can stand with them. I will stand with any person of color who has been treated unfairly. And not only just because of their color, it could be because of their gender, because of their religious belief. I don't care what it is. If you are being treated unfairly, I'll stand with you to stop it. But I'm not going to bow before you. It's not going to happen. And if I didn't do something to hurt you, I'm not going to apologize for something I didn't do. That's not the way we do things. And it's not really productive. It allows people to take advantage of us. That's why you hear people say what? You have mistaken my kindness for weakness. No, we are not weak. We are kind. We are to be kind and gentle and try to be helpful to the best of our ability and to love. But love isn't always bowing down and kneeling down before someone and giving them everything that you have because you feel sorry for them. That's not what love is. Love is sometimes a harsh word, kind of shoving somebody back into reality. So, Joe, I'm giving a little harsh word here, and I'm sorry that if it offends you, I'm not trying to offend you, but I'm trying to tell you that, the problem is much bigger than what you're trying to say that it is. It's a much bigger problem. And I want the black community and the white community, wherever you come from, no matter who you are as individuals, look at your own life individually and see if you measure up to what you need to. And that's according to God's standard. You should measure up to God's standard, not to man's standard. And so I would tell the black community right now, you got to look in the mirror. You got to see if what you're doing is really working out for you. And again, it's really specifically to those that are involved in like the inner city and those neighborhoods, because that's where the biggest problems are. That's where you see the black on black crime and the murder rates and all these things. And I won't even get into the abortion rates that are being pushed by Planned Parenthood in these black neighborhoods. Millions of black babies murdered. I won't even get it. That's another subject for another time. But I'm telling you, there's a lot bigger problems than what you are talking about, Joe. And I think you need to expand your mind a little bit, or expand your heart even a little bit. Understand what's happening here. I don't think you are. And Joe, I don't mean to be this way to you, but come on, man. You gotta open up a little bit here, and you're not. You're allowing bad ideas to clog your brain and to confuse you. We don't want chaos. We want perfect clarity and solutions. And that means all hands on deck. That means that everybody should be heard. Because when you get more ideas, Joe, you've heard of the concept of brainstorming. I'm sure you have. You know that when you brainstorm, you often get better ideas. You often come to better conclusions because there's more ideas involved. It's a numbers game, Joe. Come on, buddy. Look, love you. And I will talk to you soon. And I'm going to talk to everybody soon. Thank you so much for watching. And I'll be back right after this. Hey guys, if you want more great content from me, don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell. Come on, what are you waiting for? And I am back. Yeah, please subscribe to me. And like this video, and even if you don't like it, comment. I want to hear as many comments. If you disagree, that's fine. Let's hear your arguments. I want to hear, you want to talk about this? I don't want you to be silent. I don't want you to shut up and listen to me. I want you to listen and to speak. Give me some ideas, but I want productive ideas, guys. If you have a solution to these problems that are facing us here in this country, I want productive solutions. And I don't want name calling and, bitter vitriol. I don't want you saying, well, you're a liar or you're terrible, you're a racist, you're this, you're that. No, that's not what this is about. I want solutions. I want you to expand your mind and expand our mind. Teach us all something if you have something to teach. And learn something from us. It's a two-way street here. You can't have it one way, guys. So please, yeah, go ahead and like the video, share this video, and please subscribe, hit the notification bell. And I do want to show you I have a website. My website is michaelantonio.biz. That's michaelantonio.biz. And you can't miss it because it's got my little flashing logo up there in the upper left corner. And you get kind of an aggregated group of stories from different news sources, so you don't have to go hunting and pecking all over the countryside and on the internet to find stories. You've got them all right here with me. You can also subscribe to my daily newsletter, which will link you to all the stories on my website, so please do that as well. You can also find me on all the social media. My website has links to all my social media, little rotating banners here. You can get all that. Of course, including to my YouTube, if you're seeing this on YouTube. Guys, I do appreciate you watching. And once again, Joe, I extend my hand of friendship. I'm not going to bow before you, but I will extend a hand of friendship. And I will shake your hand if you're into that right now. Unless you're afraid of the COVID, then I won't do that yet. But someday I probably will. And when you're ready, okay? So, guys, thank you so much for watching. And I will see you all later. Yeah.